Last year, we saw the first ever street race in NASCAR history. Unfortunately, before the race weekend even began, tragedy struck. One of the contractors who was setting up for the race was electrocuted. He passed away later in the hospital. Now, the wife of the contractor has filed a lawsuit against NASCAR. Before we get into the details of the lawsuit, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. We post the latest news on everything NASCAR. Don't miss out on the action. Given that the race in Chicago last year was the first street race in NASCAR history, there was a lot of hype surrounding the event. Just as the event approached, news broke that a construction worker by the name of Dwayne passed away on the job at the circuit. He was contracted for electrical work on the track. He was supposed to be setting up the speakers and microphones around Buckingham Fountain ahead of the race. This is when he suffered an electrocution. After he got electrocuted, the first responders rushed him to the nearest hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Dwayne Trinsky was a 53-year-old electrician and had spent his entire life on the job and with his family. He is survived by his wife, Trinsky. Dwayne is also a business owner who started his own company, Dwayne, a production company which was contracted to set things up for the NASCAR weekend in Chicago last year. Dwayne was also an inventor who invented a special type of audio equipment called TrackPack, which he was setting up for the NASCAR race. People who worked with him have said that he died doing what he loved. His friends described him as a person who would always go the extra mile for the client. He always prioritized the quality of the service and product. After his death, the rest of the workers in his company continued his work and legacy. They even finished up the work for the NASCAR race in Chicago. This was tragic news ahead of the race. However, it did not affect the race itself. One of the attorneys, Kevin B. Durkin, said, "This was a horrible tragedy for the Dubinsky family. What happened last summer in the course of the setting up of the NASCAR race in Chicago was entirely preventable, and it cannot happen again," attorney Kevin B. Durkin said. "There was a terrible lapse in safety that led to the unfortunate death of Dwayne Dubinsky." On March 19th, lawyers representing the wife of Dwayne Dubinsky filed a lawsuit against NASCAR and the Chicago Park District, claiming that they neglected safety procedures in order to fast-track the process. The lawsuit is also against United Rentals, which provides the instruments for the electrical works. 4 Lead Productions, Melo Communication Services, and McGuire Scenic are also named in the work safety violation lawsuit. Dwayne Dubinsky's wife, Trinsky, has every right to file this lawsuit. Her husband passed away while completing work for NASCAR and the organizers of the Chicago street race. Christian wants the people responsible for the incident to be accountable for these unfortunate consequences. More than that, NASCAR and the organizers should identify and rectify any faults or loopholes in their procedures that allow the workers to take certain shortcuts while performing their work. Although shortcuts accomplish the task sooner, they're not entirely safe, especially when handling electrical equipment. Given that NASCAR races take place all over the country, the organization distributes the work to local contractors, instead of having a single team travel around the country. However, Dwayne has worked with NASCAR at previous events as well. There's no doubt that he was one of the most experienced in getting up audio devices for major events such as this. His company has also been contracted for other major events outside of racing. Usually, in cases like these, the organizations settle the case outside of the courtroom and behind closed doors. A settlement amount is usually offered to the plaintiff. However, the plaintiff will have the option to reject and take the course to court if she wishes to do so. This would not be ideal for NASCAR, as they stand to lose a lot. Given the success of the Chicago street race, NASCAR has decided to host the race again this year. The organization will want this case to be resolved before the Chicago street race, or else there could be a lot of legal issues. There could also be a chance that the government of Chicago decided to hold out on the race until the matter is resolved. This would be a nightmare case for NASCAR and the organizers given the amount of money that goes into preparing for a race. Once the case is taken to court, there will be an investigation into the case. The court will have to see if Dwayne was following the right procedures while conducting the work. If he was not following the proper safety procedures, the case could be dismissed by the court. If Dwayne had been following the proper safety procedures, the same sort of investigation would have been conducted on the organizers. In order to set up the electrical equipment, the organizers would have given very specific instructions to Dwayne. The investigation will have to clarify if the instructions given were accurate and safe. The organizers will also have provided certain equipment for Dwayne to use. If this equipment were outdated or malfunctioned, the organizers could be liable. The company that provided the equipment could also be in trouble if they provided faulty and malfunctioned speakers and microphones. if any of the parties are found to be liable for the accident that killed Dwayne Trinsky. There will be a lot of trouble for the Chicago street race this year and the following years. If the plaintiff wins this case in the courtroom, NASCAR will have to pay a hefty sum and make some savior changes to their procedures to make sure that it does not happen again. This could also lead to a criminal investigation to see if the safety procedures were being ignored by the organizers. This season, the Chicago street race will take place on 8th July. NASCAR and the organizers will be looking to have the case resolved by then. The best and quickest way to resolve this will be by giving a settlement amount to the plaintiff. In this case, everybody wins. However, hopefully, NASCAR has learned from their mistakes and is smart enough to not make the same mistake again. The street circuit of Chicago consists of 12 simple corners. Unlike F1 cars, NASCAR cannot have complicated corners as it will prove to be too challenging for the NASCAR cars due to the lack of downforce. Despite the track having just 12 corners, it runs 2.2 miles long. The circuit runs around the Grand Park in Chicago. The race will consist of 3 stages with 25 laps each. This gives us a total of 75 thrilling laps of NASCAR racing. But this time around, NASCAR and the organizers will be placing a bit more focus on the safety factor for their contractors. For a 2.2-mile-long track, several speakers and microphones will have to be set throughout the circuit. Unlike a regular NASCAR track, the streets of Chicago are not built to accommodate a race. Hence, more workers will be hired to conduct the work that is required. If the organizers are unable to guarantee the safety of their employees, they might not be able to get enough contractors to work their circuit. This could lead to the cancellation of the race altogether, which would mean that they would have to search for a replacement. The Grand Park race will be the 20th race of the 2024 NASCAR season. Following the race, only 6 more races will be remaining for the regular season. Hence, there will be a lot of focus towards the race as a lot of drivers will be pressured to perform at this track. Since the layout is unlike the usual oval, it provides a lot of opportunities for different drivers to win the race. Given the way NASCAR is designed, every race will give the driver an opportunity to win. Given that only race winners are qualified for the playoffs, there's no doubt that every single one of the drivers will be looking to take full advantage of the Chicago street circuit. Last year, we saw New Zealand driver Shane van Gisbergen take the race win on the streets of Chicago. The Chicago street race was Shane's NASCAR debut. Shane only drove for 2 races last season and managed to win 1 in Chicago. Although he was not a part of the championship, he accomplished something that not many drivers in the league do in their debut race. This season, we could see another surprise winner as there are some fresh faces who will be seeing the streets for the first time this year. Let's wait and see how this lawsuit affects the event. If the case goes into the courtroom, it could be a disaster for the organizers and NASCAR. Do you think NASCAR should settle the case before it reaches the courtroom? Also, who do you think will win the Chicago street race this year? Post your thoughts in the comment section below.